Welcome to The Accurate Perspective, a podcast on local politics in Yakima. We take politics to a whole new level. Factual reporting, sources you can trust, and best of all, no BS. Unlike other news organizations, we won't mislead you or manipulate the news to our advantage. It's facts first, and the truth shall set you free. Join our hosts, Matt Brown, Hannah Joy, and Dave Mullen, as we do what we do best, and that's dunk on all our competitors.
Guys, welcome back to the Accurate Perspective podcast. This is episode 26. We have the full gang back together again. It's been the last episode we did was in June, and we said, hey, we're coming back strong, but it's been a summer, guys. So we're back, though. We're here. We've got a lot to share with you guys. And Dave and Hannah, how is everybody first? Everyone hanging in there?
Awesome. Getting ready for school starting. Just loving life out here in Sealand.
Yeah, nice. I know. It's been a fun summer. It's been hot. I'm glad summer's almost over, and really it's starting to get cooled off around here. So it's great. Well, let's just dive in. So first off, we had a primary election August 1st, and we had some local elections happen. And I just kind of briefly go over some notable wins here. In District 1 and City Council for Yakima, Leo Roy and Dulce, I can't even say her last name. It's too hard for me to pronounce. But Dulce and Leo both made it through the primary. And Leo came within 7 votes of Dulce in the primary, which is a pretty big deal when you think of that. Dulce has sat on city council before. She's won this seat before, and Leo came within 7 votes of actually winning the primary. And if there was actually 4 votes flipped the other direction, he would actually won it. So interesting, but now they're going on to the general election. So that's one in Yakima City. There was no other Yakima City elections for the primary. There was out in West Valley, the school board candidate out there, Steve Wolcott. I'm not sure if you guys are following Steve, but Steve had a resounding thump of an 8-year incumbent, almost 12% over an 8-year incumbent out in West Valley, which is really cool. Really cool to see. I'm not biased, but I did endorse him, so I am totally biased. So that was another really cool one to see. And then, I'm trying to think. Over in Union Gap, there was a 8-year incumbent city council lady there who also overwhelmingly won the primary, which was Julie Schilling. So what we have here is a bunch of the candidates. Almost every candidate that the Republicans endorsed locally won locally. So interesting little tidbit there moving forward. But that's kind of the local elections piece that I think was really cool to see. But we have other things going on as well. Dave, what is going on in the school district?
In the Yakima School District, apparently they're asking for another levy. They have a budget deficit, you could call it. Probably not the right wording, but they're down, $17 or $19 million because they've lost about 1,000 students in the last, 4 years or so. And they've kept adding costs to their budget. And so now they're going to go back to the voters and ask for more money. I think in the Yakima Valley recently, we've seen that voters really aren't so willing to put a rubber stamp on levies anymore. So this could be really, really interesting, especially if they're asking for the full $17 to $19 million that they need.
What I thought was interesting as I was looking at it was the last time they tried to pass this type of levy, it failed. actually. It failed by 0.3% or 0.30%. So it was 49.7% and it failed. And then they passed, So then another one they tried to pass succeeded by less than 1%. So like, and those have been the last two ones they've tried to successfully pass. Only they're batting 1 for 1 here. But in my opinion, things have changed in education in the last time they tried to pass these things. If you want to ask me, I have kids that are technically in the Yakima School District. We're not in the Yakima School District, but our kids are a part of the school district. What was it? 15% of the Yakima School District students are meeting math standards. 15%. Right. And I'm not saying that, it's the student's fault or it's the school district, there's a multitude of things that are playing out that are causing these issues. But the reality is that as a taxpayer, you start to ask the question, what is my return on investment for the education that my kids are receiving? Right. Like, schools should be preparing them for the real world and how to just, do basic English, writing, math, not all of the other things that are being forced upon students in the schools right now. And you're seeing it. We're still passing. Over 80% of the students are graduating, and yet none of them are meeting standards. Like, it's a big problem.
It's insane. It's not just the Yakima School District, right? It's like almost the entire Yakima Valley has statistics like the Yakima School District. 31.8% of students meet ELA standards. 29.8% meet science standards. $17,500 spent per pupil, and they're still graduating 80% of kids per year. So technically you're sending what? Rough numbers, 50% of the kids out into the real world, not competent in some of the most basic subjects that you need to know to be successful. And so, like you said, it's a multi-pronged problem, but if it were me running for school board or currently on the school board, I'd look from the top down, to be honest with you, and see if changes needed to be made. If you have a terrible budget outlook plus terrible results, like, what needs to change? When will citizens, like you said, get the return on investment that they deserve?
Right. And someone asked me, said, well, Matt, what would be your ideal return on investment? And I'm like, well, obviously we don't live in a perfect world, and 100% of kids aren't going to be meeting standards. I get that. I'm like, let's be realistic. I'm like, I'm not asking for 100% here, but what I am asking for is more than a quarter of the students are passing these things. Like, what I am asking for, if we're spending $17,000 per student, that maybe at least half of them should be meeting these standards. That would be great. Before I would say, like, hey, let's just keep throwing money at something, because it's obviously not working. Right? Like, if we're sitting there going, okay, we're just going to keep throwing money into this pot and the grade scores and the efficiencies of what these students are doing, it's just going down and down and down. I'm like, obviously it's not the money problem. We have money. There's how we're doing it. The system approach of what is happening inside the public education system is broken. There's something broken inside, especially, I don't know how the west side fares on, meeting standards, but on the east side, and at least in Yakima, man, we have probably some of the worst school district standards when it comes to meeting educational standards. Like, over in Toppenish, I mean, it was less than like 13%. I mean, it was rough out there. And so I'm going, how do we bridge that gap? I don't think money is the solution. I think we have to start looking at, okay, guys, we got to laser focus on just the basics. Like, we have to stop focusing on all these other things, the extracurricular all over there. I'm going, how do we get kids to understand these core principles and get them through the education. Now,
I have a theory on that.
I know that's logical thinking, but what's your theory?
Pull them out of school. Seriously, when you talk about the amount of children, like 21,000 children left the school district in COVID, right, since 2020, and more children are leaving the school district all the time. So you have to open up school choice. You have to do a voucher system in which parents have the right to take the money that they put into the school system for their children and move them to a better educational system, whatever that may be, private, charter, homeschool, wherever you want to take that. It's the entire philosophy of a free market capitalist society, right? You take your money where it's best used, and you can't do that in the educational system. And that's why we have such a dumbing down of our children and a complete lack of basic skills, because they know they have you trapped. There's no other option for you while you're still paying into the system.
So you said 21,000 students have been pulled out. Is that in just Washington State?
That's just Washington State.
Yeah, so that's $367 million that public education is now vanished because of, and I don't blame parents for, like my kids. We did very similarly during COVID, as we said, we're done with public education. We moved from a school district that we were more okay with into Yakima School District. And I started looking at all of the, the measurements, and I'm like, nope, I want my kids to actually succeed in life. And and what, I guess I would ask that question. What parent wouldn't want their kids to succeed in life? I mean, I know there's some bad parents in the world. I get that. But man, I just think we as even a society should be demanding better from our public education.
So my question is, we have all these students who've left the schools. The schools aren't getting as much money per student because they're not there, but yet the taxpayers are still paying the same amount of money into the school. So where is that money going? We've really lost accountability for where our money goes to our school system. And that's one of the biggest problems we have, is accountability. The parents can't hold the schools accountable because then they're considered domestic terrorists. Who is holding the schools accountable for making sure our children are getting the proper education? No one.
Well, it's definitely not the school boards either yet. I think we have a glimmer of hope here in Yakima Valley that we can get some real conservatives on those boards and they can start holding people accountable. But you're exactly right. And, I told the story time and time again. I always thought that the school boards would be courageous during COVID. And boy, was I wrong. And I was so wrong with the East Valley School Board when they told me that their personal opinion didn't matter on the questions I was asking, that I pulled my children from that school district because I realized who was supposed to be oversight was just a rubber stamp. That's all they wanted to be. And, I'm not okay with the status quo for my children. I don't think other people should be. And parents, this may come off really strong and really wrong, but they really need to take ownership of their children. That question has always been asked. Do you own your kids or whatever? Wrong verbiage, but you get the idea behind it. And parents really need to step up. I've seen posts on Facebook where schools are refusing to allow parents to pull their kids early from school for an appointment. In what way is that okay? That's my child. I have an appointment for that kid. I'm going to grab my kid from the school. You don't own that child. That's mine. And there was a question about that whole thing. And so it's just real curious to me about that. And I think parents, it's time for them to step up and be courageous, because school boards won't be.
Yeah. I mean, going back to our local elections piece, I think that's, very interesting. So, if you're listening to the show, you probably have more of a conservative bent to you than, the other side of the aisle, or you're just listening to try to stump Matt Brown, and that's fine too. If you're trying to do that locally, that's cool, whatever. But I will say this is that there's local elections coming up, and in all of the school districts, there are conservatives who are running. There are folks that are endorsed locally by the Republican Party. We haven't been shy about that. I am the chair. It's been real vocal. We've been right up front with it. These are who they are, and we're being real. with that. Now, with that being said, you have an opportunity as parents this year to try to hopefully get some folks that are going to get your school districts moving in the right direction. And, it might not be. So we'll see what happens. But, again, pay attention, parents. If you're listening to this, go find your school district and figure out who are running in your area, because there's some good folks running. So let's shift gears a little bit. So there was a lawsuit that happened in the 15th legislative district. So last year they reshuffled all of the legislative districts again based on census data. And Yakima kind of got an interesting shift as we now have 3 legislative districts. Dave's actually in the 13th. We actually had 3 legislative districts show up. We used to only have the 14th and the 15th, and the 13th was never with us. Now they wrote Jeremy Dufault out of his district, and then now we have the 13th, 14th, and 15th inside of Yakima. And what that ends up creating is an interesting dynamic for Yakima County. But ultimately, now what has happened is some folks have sued, and I will say, I'm not entirely sure who the organizations are because they change names about every 5 minutes. But they sued because they didn't believe the 15th was districted in a way that was, let's say, well, it's a minority majority district, right? And they won. So the lawsuit went through. And so now after we just went through this whole process last year with redistricting, because, they said, the minority voice is not being heard in the 15th, which is funny. I'm just going to, put this out there. Nikki Torres is currently the 15th district legislator for Senate. She's Hispanic. In the 13th, we have Alex Ibarra, who is also Hispanic. And then we've got, who else is in the 15th? That's Bruce Chandler, and I'm spacing on a name right now, Brian Sandlin. So there are folks that are being represented there. And so now they've redistricted that again. And now we're going to find out where the dominoes fall. Because as soon as you change the 15th, you got to start moving the 13th and 14th around as well.
And Matt, just so you know, the map that judge rejected had Latinos comprising 73% of the total population of the 15th district, 73%, and an estimated 51.5% of voting age residents. So they had over a super majority of representation, and that's not enough.
Well, it's only enough if I'll just be real. The side that sued it was a very Democrat side of the party of the political sphere, right? And it seems like it's only fair if one of their people get elected. It's not fair if Republicans keep winning those seats.
Yeah.
And that's why they take it. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to play out, because I've talked to a couple legislators and they're like, if we redo the 15th, the 13th is now in play, the 14th is now in play. They're like, you start having dominoes change because you have to maneuver these lines. It would be hilarious to me if they redistricted and then Jeremy Dufault is back in his district. They just and then the 13th is back out of Yakima again. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, this is exhausting. So I believe it's in January, the legislature is going to reconvene a commission to put this together. And by February, we're going to have new maps all over again before next year's elections. So, it's a great
You don't like
time.
the game? Come on. You don't like the game?
I just get used to a map and then it gets thrown out, So Hannah is always the traveling mom on the road. So, we just have to
My
give her
phone
patience.
was overheating, so I had to throw it under an ice bag real quick. I feel so bad. I'm so sorry. One day I'll have a stable work life. That's a lie, but I'll tell you that.
All right, Hannah. Well, we're gonna shift a little bit. What's happening in the state GOP?
Oh, we've actually had some amazing things happen in the state GOP. We have elected a new chair, Jim Walsh. He's already begun. I mean, he just hit the ground running. He's making statements left and right. He's talking about Senate Bill 5599. He is just proving to be a very active in the grassroots chair, and it's just already showing to garner more support from the candidates and from our big dollar donors. So Caleb was great at big dollar donations, but we had lost a lot of the really truly conservative big dollar donors. And what we're seeing now is some interest from the real conservative big dollar donors coming back and kind of saying, oh, things are switching up a little bit. The grassroots has support. They have a voice. They've got a backing. We can see where grassroots candidates are going to start getting more support than they have. And we're starting to have them look our way again, which is a really big thing. Not only that, but I predict that our small dollar donors are going to start coming back too, now that we have a chair who has so much experience in the legislature and maneuvering through those laws and the corruption, and be able to put the party in a position where he can actually help candidates as low as school board, which is something we haven't seen in the past. So that was great. We also ratified the caucus and convention rules for the new convention coming up. This is a convention in which our hope is to come out with a slate of candidates for the 9 state seats and 10 congressional districts. If we can do that, then we can put money towards this slate of candidates. It's fiscally responsible. It makes more sense to have a slate that we come out with right before the primary, so that people can put their full support behind these candidates. And of course, we're going to have some that some people won't like. That's just the way it is. But one of the things I really, truly appreciate about this convention is that it takes the endorsement away from the whole body, so the whole state, and puts it only within the district the candidate is running in. And I feel like that is really important, because it really should only be the people who are in that district endorsing that candidate, not the entire state. Because the entire state doesn't even vote on them, right? So it might not be perfect. It's the first convention we've started, but it is the beginning of something. And really, honestly, I'm happy to see anything, because what we've been doing has not been working. And so this is something, right? We're finally fighting against the definition of insanity, which is continually doing the same thing and losing over and over again.
Well, we've talked about it on this show. I mean, remember in last year's elections, we had, especially in CD4, we had what, Dave, it was like 6, 7 Republicans that ran. And then, and then Dan Newhouse, the incumbent, just again continues to skate through on that. Mm-hmm. So it was very frustrating. And we talked about it. We talked about how you could fix this system a bit, because Washington State's a jungle primary. You have a top 2 that move through. It doesn't matter which party they are. It's just whoever the top 2 vote getters is. So this is an attempt to try to fix that. There's some things I wish we could have added into it. Hannah's going to be the rose-colored glasses person when it comes to the convention more than I am.
I support it.
There's certain things that I wish would have made a little bit more impact, but it didn't happen. One of those was I wish automatic delegates could have been a thing for PCOs. I feel like PCOs getting a voice as the precinct officer elected person, they should be able to be automatic to the state level for delegates. But that didn't happen, and Hannah just disappeared again. Hopefully her phone probably just overheated. But anyways, that's some of the stuff in the convention that I think I wish could have changed a little bit. But needless, it's an interesting setup. So how it's going to work, and here she's back again. How the convention is going to work, right, is we have precinct caucuses that'll take place in January. Those precinct caucuses will move people into a county caucus, which can happen between February and March-ish. And then from there, each county gets a certain amount of delegates that they can send to the state. So for like Yakima, I think we're at 78 delegates that we send to the state. And so when we send them to the state, then they get to vote. There's 2,500 delegates across the entire state, and we'll get to vote on all the statewide elected positions. All of us will get to vote. And then for each congressional one, only the districts will get to vote. So the delegates from each congressional. So CD4, for example, however many delegates that's in CD4, I don't know. I don't have the map in front of me. But however many that is, will get to vote for an endorsement on their candidate that they want. And so that's a change. Now, does it stop other candidates from running? No, it doesn't, because, we can't physically force someone to do that. But Hannah, we hear you. Can you not hear us? No, she can't hear us. So, anyways, we're moving forward with it. But we're gonna see what happens. Dave, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Jim Walsh was a great pick. I think, the charm or the magic of Jim Walsh is that he's always talking and fighting about topics that the voters care about, not necessarily the, Olympia Republican echo chamber. I feel that they just care about stuff that the voters don't care about. But whenever you hear Jim talk and what he's talking about, and he sticks with that thing until he sees it to the end, school choice, SB 5599, any anti-gun law, Jim Walsh is all over it. Doing what Hannah said, maneuvering around to get the best result for us. But I just appreciate the guy's passion, and his love for the grassroots. I don't think that's too much of a stretch to say. And he's inspirational. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in these next 4 years.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. Well, in his leadership, I mean, he's fulfilling a midterm vacancy. So, so he's basically filling in for Caleb, who had resigned. Jim is jumping in, and so he's got another year, and then he'll have to stand up for election again. So it's kind of an interesting deal where he's got a year, and it'll be interesting to see, if he can turn some things around or what the state party does. Now, I will say this, like, I'm one of those guys, same thing here locally. I'm like, look, if I can't figure it out in a certain amount of time, then I just can't figure it out. Someone else can try it out, like I'm not going to try to keep beating my head against the wall. But, hopefully Jim's, we're going to be moving in the right direction. So
listen, if Jim won't figure it out, we're doomed.
We're in trouble. Well, and this convention is a good idea. Ultimately, I think it'll hopefully get us to where we're not putting 35 governor candidates in a race. But past that, we'll see what happens. It still has its moments of, let's just say, Republican chaos that it can create inside the party. And, because we're not robots like Democrats. So I'm sorry, that was a very biased calculation said there. But I'm just saying, in the Republican Party, we've got a lot of personalities and a lot of thoughts on how things should be done. So I'm interested to see where it's going. But the other big thing, which Hannah didn't mention, I don't even know if she can hear us yet. Can you hear me? Shake your head. No, she can't. She's still there though. She's smiling at least. Is Joe Kent was endorsed in CD3, and that was a big deal. The state committee actually, they went to war for Joe Kent, and it was quite the battle that happened. Originally they made the motion to endorse. Well, they had to suspend the rules first, right? So they went to make the motion to suspend the rules, and they lost it by a vote. By one vote. And then they made a motion to reconsider. And when you make a motion to reconsider, it's actually like three different parts, because you have to make a motion. You have to vote on the motion to reconsider, and it's yes or no. Then it's the original motion, which is to suspend the rules, and then they have to make a vote on that, and then it's the endorsement of Joe Kent, right? So it's a 3-part process. Well, every time they went to vote, they got the motion to reconsider by like a vote or two, right? And then the second time around, for the suspension of the rules, they got like more votes. And then when they went to actually endorse him, they got 75% of the room to endorse Joe Kent.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, I think that's really big, because if you read the news media or the, let's call them the establishment on the side of the Republican Party, they would like to tell you that it was just a ragtag group of misfits that made all this happen. It was Joe Kent's rebellion inside the party, whatever, these crazy, but it was 75% of the state committee. Okay. So like, if you're alienating 3/4 of the state committee at that point, if you're saying that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, guys, let's be real. Joe Kent got the endorsement, and he followed the rules. A lot of their complaining about it was because, well, we just created this convention. Now what are we going to do? And I told one of the other chairs that was upset about that. I said, well, okay, like that wasn't even created yet. The convention hadn't even been created in that part of the meeting. And so, Hannah, can you hear us now?
Can hear you now.
Hey, great. Welcome back. So we were talking about Joe Kent. But what was interesting that I was just saying was that Joe followed all the rules and got the endorsement, and people are upset because of the convention, but we hadn't even made the convention yet. That was later in the meeting. And
sure, yeah. There's no connection there. It was kind of, I consider this whole thing an unfortunate conversion of the old and new. And that's really what happened, was that Joe had come into this race really, really early, had been working towards the endorsement per our current policy. It just happened to be that when it was brought to the state convention, it was the same state convention that we were ratifying the rules and convention, that there would no longer be any endorsements through that process. So it was like an unfortunate convergence of these two systems coming together, but it will have no effect on the convention at all. A lot of rumors going around is, well, Joe's been endorsed. He's not going to have to go to the convention like everyone else. That's false. He's going to have to go to the convention. He could lose it or he could keep it. There's this rile up that is now tainted, or it's diluted or dirtied or muddied the waters for the convention. That's not accurate at all, right? We had done the due diligence that we said we were going to do for Joe. We honored our current bylaws when we did endorse him. And so it's just a big nothing burger. People who are really upset about it are just upset. And I'm not sure why. It has nothing to do with the convention. It has nothing to do with candidates moving forward. It's just, when you go into a brand new system of something we've never done before, this convention, when it begins, there's going to be some prickly skin, right? We're doing something we've never done before, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can't say, okay, candidate A, you've done everything you did, but because we're looking to the future and because future bylaws might say something else, we're going to say no, right? You just don't do that. And so we did our due diligence. We supported him, we endorsed him, and then afterwards, we created the caucus and convention rules, which said, from this moment on, no other candidate on a convention year will be able to be endorsed through that process. So again, it's a big nothing burger. It doesn't affect the convention at all. He still has to go through the convention. He could lose it. He could keep it. He's going to have to do things just like every other candidate.
Yeah. And I will say it does help him out financially speaking. There's, PACs and different things at the federal level that are going to help him that wouldn't have helped him without that endorsement. And so I think, if you follow the rules and then all of a sudden the rules are taken out from under you right at the, it's like, well, wait, I just been working this for the last 6 months trying to do all this. Where the freak did all the rules go? And like, that's where I was like, come on, guys, let's quit being stupid here. I mean, let's be real. The reason why they're upset about it, which is funny to me, is it's none of the counties that actually belong in CD3 that are upset about it.
Yeah, so actually 5 out of the 6 counties in Joe's district endorsed him, and the 6th just hadn't got around to it yet. They are doing that as we speak. And so when you have 6 out of 6 counties that have endorsed a candidate in their district, and you don't have a recognized Republican running against him, he's the only recognized Republican in the race, it makes absolutely no sense why you wouldn't endorse him, especially when he's done what he's done. And again, that's when I bring it back to, I really appreciate the convention rules stating that only the people within your district are going to vote on you. Joe not only had to go to the entire state for this endorsement through this process, but he had to meet a really high bar of things to even be considered, which was raising a certain amount of money, having certain endorsements, having done certain things that are not going to be required at the convention. Not only that, but when we brought it to the floor, 74.1% of the total body, that is everybody in the entire state, voted to endorse him. That is overwhelming grassroots support. And I can't be more proud of our party right now.
Yeah, and that's what I thought just was funny. I'm like, guys, the whole CD3 endorsed him. So why are you fighting this endorsement or pissed off about it? I'm like, you don't even live in CD3. Take a chill pill. Like, just relax, okay? That's their problem. It's not the whole state's problem. It's CD3. They wanted him. That's what they're getting. It's fine, and just the same way in like CD4, like last year, no county parties ended up endorsing anybody. And so we ended up stuck with a free for all with 7 candidates. And, and Dan Newhouse is like, cool, I'm the only one that everyone knows. So I'm just going to, but he just skirted on through.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, guys, if the county parties did something and they're backing a guy, like, calm down. And these state pundits are just a joke to me that are calling this stuff out on social media and Twitter. And if you're watching or listening, you guys are a joke. I just want you to know you're a joke. Like, calm down.
I think another issue that we have, and I'm going to point this out, is the fact that one particular person I was on Twitter with kept saying things that were completely untrue. That, he doesn't have to go to the convention, untrue. That he didn't have to do this or that. And none of that was true. So opening that conversation and just calling him out in a polite way was saying, you weren't there. And you don't have the whole story. And you don't actually know what's going on or have a good understanding of how bylaws and policies work. And because of that, you're spreading misinformation, vitriol misinformation that could hurt a candidate. Makes no sense. So I think sometimes we put ourselves in these boxes of only talking to the people that agree with us, and we got to stop doing that. We have to step out and say, I want to have a conversation with you because I don't think you have it quite right.
Yeah. Here's the full thing too. So that same day that all that happened, all that transpired, Yakima had its biggest Lincoln Day in the state. We had by far the largest
it was
Lincoln
so
Day.
Great.
We had Charlie Kirk, and we had 915 people there total. And the great thing is that we raised. So before the event even started, on just ticket sales alone, we had close to 70,000 that we had brought in on ticket sale revenue. And then after ticket sales, when we actually had our fundraiser at the event, we brought in another 50 some odd thousand, which I'm not sure what other county parties experience, but I just know, like, what I've heard from other chairs who have been around a long time is like, that's the most they've ever heard ever. So, and these guys have been doing this longer than I have. So I'm like, cool, man. I didn't know that. That's cool. But it was really great. We had a lot of students there. We had like over 100 students, Gen Zers, 26 and youngers. So it's a much different vibe than a typical Lincoln Day, and be able to walk out of there with a huge fundraising win for the local party was huge. So I didn't actually get to go to state committee. I just got to get debriefed by all my peeps over there and see on it because I was drowning in Lincoln Day fun. So I think we've caught you guys all up on a lot of things. Is there anything else you guys want to catch people up on? I mean, we're going into November, September, October, election season time. What do we got coming up that we want to kind of fill people in on? For me,
go ahead.
For me, it's really, you guys need to watch your local elections. This is the year for local elections. If you don't know who to support in your area, go to your local county party's website and see if they have endorsements. If they have endorsements, start researching those candidates. I'm not saying just vote off of those endorsements alone, but do some vetting of those candidates and see if you like them. See if they fit your values. They fit what you're looking for in a local election. Because I will say this, in this state at least, I don't know about other states, but in this state, local elections, the taxes that can be levied upon you in a local election, because if you vote wrong or you vote for a candidate that you think is not going to tax you, all of a sudden, here's all these taxes that get levied upon you. And so it's very crucial that you guys pay attention to those local elections this fall. This is the time. And in Yakima especially, we have the lowest voter turnout in Washington State. Please, for the love of God, vote.
Oh, yeah. Or we're coming to your door.
You were going to say something, Hannon.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up I thought this was really, really fascinating bit of information that, as you guys probably figured out, I do more state news, is that Bob Ferguson is going to have to pay out, the state and taxpayers are going to have to pay out $5.7 million because apparently Bob Ferguson loves to do this little scheme where he goes to businesses, tries to find a fault in them, and then says, hey, listen, you pay me money. And we won't take it to court. We won't do anything about it. It's literal extortion. And so Value Village said, no, I don't think so. I don't think what you're saying is quite accurate. And
Oh, Hannah muted herself. Hold on. There you go.
For 8 years, Bob Ferguson's office went after Value Village on this claim that they weren't representing themselves correctly. And Value Village says, you're violating my First Amendment rights to speech and what we do and how we say. And the courts overwhelmingly ruled in favor of Value Village. But my concern is not only that taxpayers have to pay $5.7 million out to this lawsuit, which is simply just the legal fees. That's all it is. The legal fees of them fighting Bob Ferguson. It's not even a win. How many other businesses in the state of Washington have been extorted by Bob Ferguson? How many have paid him hush money so the state doesn't attack them and come after them? This is really a deep-seated issue that needs to be addressed because you're talking when 2020 happened, 2021, you had COVID, you had issues, and now you have this going on. The need to support small businesses is so imperative right now. It absolutely is. Not only that, we're talking about bringing mask mandates back. It's already started in other areas. Seattle is starting to talk about it. Do we really want to live through that again? Do we really want to go through all of the vaccination cards and the masking? We have got to start standing up for ourselves before it happens. And I know, Dave, you had talked about how the school board really fell through the cracks in that area. Now is the time to start bolstering people. Now is the time to start talking to your neighbor before it gets there, before the division happens, and creating communication on, do we really want to have this division against each other again? And I think, like you said, answer is no, we don't.
You are seeing a conservative movement that is growing stronger the more they fight. At Turning Point USA, we play offense with a sense of urgency to go to places that we are in the ideological and philosophical minority. We are creating students that are having to persevere and endure criticism, backlash, slander. The media department at Turning Point USA reaching hundreds of millions of people with daily shows, impacting culture, making persuasive content. We hosted over 400 pastors and wives at our pastor summit Not to mention the newly launched Turning Point Academy, unapologetically educating the next generation around truth. What gives me hope is that what we see on these campuses is a generation that understands the only way you beat the left is you never give up and you never give them an inch, period.
All right. Well, guys, let's wrap up. I'm going to give a quick shout out because our sponsors have been super helpful and they continuously support this show, even though we have been failing on our side of actually putting the show together. So I just want to give a big shout out to Baker's Auto and Mac Daddy's Coffee. You guys have stuck through us over here at Accurate Perspective. We're trying to get our lives in order, guys. I really am trying to get my life in order.
You guys are doing great.
But you know, Hannah's always on the road. Dave's had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I can't have a show by myself. It's kind of just weird if I get on here. So anyways, but I do want to say a big shout out to those two. If you need a car fix, go to Baker's Auto here in town or Mac Daddy's Coffee. He just opened up a new location. It's like a football distance away from my house. So, you know, if you want coffee, I don't drink coffee, but he has a lot of other things too. So go check it out. Support them. Tell them that everyone loves them because they've also been the folks standing up and putting their money where their mouth is and trying to get out there, get involved. Both of those business owners have put a lot of time and effort in to try to help our community get better. So that's big. How do you find us? I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Look at this. We have special effects, guys. You can find us on the web at perspectivecast.com. Join us there. That's where you'll see all the other episodes. Hopefully, we're going to be a little more proactive at getting these episodes out to you guys and some special guests here and there. I'm trying to actually see if I can't get some big names. I'm not going to name them, but there's a couple folks that have been interested in joining us. Just because of all the fun stuff we've been able to do in Yakima. So join us at perspectivecast.com. And then if you would like to support the show, go become a Patreon member at patreon.com/accurate perspective. $5 a month helps keep the show going. Even though we haven't been able to get the show going, we're going to keep the show going and keep rocking it. And with your support, we can keep doing this and all the other things we're trying to do to support our local folks here in Yakima, get stuff done. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. Anything else for the good of the order? We had a lot of technical fun today, so I'll see how this turns out. But
you know, I'm gonna stop doing couch surfing. I'm gonna start doing office searching. Like, hey, listen, can I use your office for an hour? You live on the I-5 corridor. Just let me know.
Yes, Hannah's the traveling. I told you, she's the traveling mom. She's all over the place, fighting the
literally.
Battle. So she's got more patience than I do, traveling all the time. So, but yep, we're gonna wrap up. But again, guys, thank you for putting up with us and our lack of episodes. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.